ABC News special. This morning, the world pays tribute, remembering his life, his legacy, his profound impact, celebrating Francis, the People's Pope.
I bless each one of you from my heart. Please remember to pray for me.
Now reporting live from the Vatican, David Muir.
Good morning, and we're so glad you're with us here this morning. We join you from St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. We are here, of course, for the funeral of Pope Francis, a lifelong humble servant of the Catholic Church. He dedicated his life to lifting up the lives of others, breaking at times from ritual and tradition to lead the Church in a more humble, a more modest way. It is just after 9:30 a.m. here in Rome, of course, just after 3:30 in the morning back in the East. We're about 30 minutes away from the start of today's funeral mass for Pope Francis. On our way to the Vatican right here this morning and looking around St. Peter's Square, in fact, you can see the tens of thousands who are here to say farewell. Americans from across the U.S. and millions of people from all over the world witnessing what will be a somber moment in history, but also a celebration of his life, the funeral for Pope Francis. There was a moment just a short time ago we witnessed here, the rush of people running, some sprinting to get into the square to find a place where they could share in this historic moment being seen by the world. Today's Mass, as you know, is based on centuries-old rituals, some dating back to the early days of the Church.
Say goodbye to this Pope. He used to like to bring people together
he called for his two, Ukraine's President Zelensky, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Prince William, all here for today's funeral. Pope Francis was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio of Argentina, the son of Italian immigrants. He studied science to be a chemist. He loved music and dance. He loved soccer back in his home of Argentina. He would become a priest at 32 years old, a modest servant who rose to become known as the People's Pope. We have our team in place across St. Peter's Square, along the procession route, and at the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where Pope Francis asked to be laid to rest. It was just a few hours ago the world took its final look at Pope Francis. We were here following 3 days of lying in state here at St. Peter's Basilica. And in a dramatic and moving ritual, the Pope's face was covered by a white silk veil. His coffin was closed. A bag was placed inside containing coins minted during his papacy, and a canister with a rogito, or a deed, listing details of his life and of his papacy. We have seen a constant flow here of mourners since news first broke of his passing nearly 1 week ago, early Monday morning. After his moving appearance on Easter Sunday, more than 250,000 people came from all over the world, waiting for hours in slow-moving lines here at the Vatican. There were tears. We saw people praying, weaving their way through the square for their chance to say goodbye to the man who led the Church for 13 years. Even in death, Pope Francis wanted to be accessible to the people through St. Peter's Square. Say goodbye. Suffered a stroke live from St. Pio. In the earth, simple, without particular decoration. The Vatican revealing an image of the tomb's design, Italian marble from Liguria, where his grandparents were from, right here in Italy.
St. Peter's.
You got the sense that even in death, there was still a calling for a lot of people to be sort of near this Pope, near the place where he spent so much time, and to sort of absorb a little bit of that goodness that he seemed to sprinkle around, that simplicity.
Really, through his own
Christian, you could see him like
tradition. Popes are buried here at St. Peter's Basilica, but that's okay for small Catholic population. It is
nostris perducat nos ad vitam aeternam.
Taking this role in life.
Pope Francis became a priest at 32 years old after studying to be a chemist, and quickly made his mark on the
receives forgiveness of sins through his name.
Veneration and esteem
vocabolario
With his
que llega
characteristic
cada
vocabulary,
día
Archbishop of Athens, embrace
con tutte
with all.
us
Which will be given up.
what provoke
We shall be like
And that moment was really special. We watched everyone around here.
That this was a
Much as easily as
It's universal.
visit him, those are the people you would see close.
Coffin now inside the basilica. Some of the images that they session here today.
Casa Santa Marta, where he spent the last 12 years. He decided not to live in the more elaborate apostolic palace where he kept his office. He also passed the Paul the
It'll go by the Colosseum and then to the Via Merulana, Puli Romano. It's interesting to
David Ono, good to have you with us here too. And as it comes back by, we might check
and the Pope will come up that narrow lane. I know there's some
streets, sort of encouraging here today. Terry Moran, who has also been here, and Terry, Pope Francis knew the power of optics. And it's funny, we talked about this earlier. Words were important to him, but deeds and the way he carried himself and his actions were equally, if not more important. And
Francis did over and over to reach out and touch people.
I think you're absolutely right, Terry. A gift to the church.
He came to the back.
Francis did.
Boy, St. Mary Major, the final resting place for the powerful message from Pope Francis to one little boy. And there were so many stories of this connection. James Longman, I just wanted to go to you as well, because I know you've talked to so many people who have come here to the Vatican, come here to Rome, just in the course of the last week, just to make sure that they somehow were able to say a prayer and to quietly say thank you to a leader they were convinced sort of transcended the church, reached people beyond the Catholic Church.
127th and final climb up this famed.
We appreciate it. You can see the papal gentleman lifting the coffin off of the back of the truck. The Popemobile now at St. Mary Major. And of course, St. Mary Major was obviously an historic site for so many people making the pilgrimage. At the time,
The body of Pope Francis made that final climb up Meriu Luna. Kathy. The body of Pope Francis made that final climb up Meriu Luna. Kathy's taken so many times, 126 visits to the Basilica.
I think we need to recognize
in front of millions.
We see them begging now here being buried in your mind as to what the crisis of the
Pope, and Mike set the scene for us. In front of millions.
will be reflected here too, David. Simplicity, no decor.
tutti for everyone to feel welcome.